NSFW, how did you accidentally discover your kink fetish? The earliest I can remember was seeing Catwoman tied up on a conveyor belt watching Batman the animated series growing up. I was watching my morning cartoons while getting ready for school in like 4th grade or something. Bowser had Princess Peach tied up and on a machine with a wheel of feathers tickling her feet. I'm pretty sure that woke up like 7 different fetishes in me. Back in high school, my boyfriend at the time were each other's firsts. About 95% of our sex took place in the backseat of his parents' SUV because he had a license. And I shared a bedroom with my sister growing up. Number 1. We were fooling around one night and he wanted to see how far up his hand could go inside. We tried it. Didn't know I'd be into fisting, but it really fills you up. Number 2. Same guy, but a few years later. We had broken up but still slept together regularly and I thought we'd be getting back together eventually. All of a sudden he tried a new move of completely pinning me down so I couldn't move. While he was going down on me, somehow the restraint made it even hotter. Until I found out that he learned that move from sleeping with someone else a few days before. And it kind of ruined that for me at the same time. I was a Boy Scout. And my ex-wife found out. She asked me to bring home some rope. Now I like bondage. When I was studying at the university, a friend and I were talking about sleeping patterns and I mentioned I had a hard time staying in bed if I didn't fall asleep. She jokingly mentioned that she should tie me down to the bed so I couldn't leave. I laughed it off and said she'd never dare to do that. But lo and behold, one night when I was dozing off at a house party I found myself constrained to the bed. And found it surprisingly arousing. Nothing ever happened between us. But a fetish was born that night. A girl sat on my face all of a sudden and told me to get to work. Boss. Huffalump. You're late again. And what the FCK is that woman doing on your face? I was doing clinicals at the ER and an attractive football player came in with a broken clavicle. Seeing him in pain awakened something in me. Was drunk one night in college and an older full-figured woman at the bar I was talking to said, "You're cute. But I don't know if you can handle me." I pretty much told her to do her worst. Went home with her and had the most intense orgasm of my life till that point. Actually ended up hooking up with her on and off throughout my senior year. She was single, but had business all over the country. So it was sort of a whenever she wanted it kind of thing. Learned that I am into slightly older, full-figured, and very sexually dominant women. Let me tell you guys, this has been an extremely difficult fetish to fulfill on an even remotely consistent basis. I was 14 or so, jumping on a trampoline with one of my close girlfriends. We lay down after bouncing around for a while and she put her feet on me and then started playing around and putting them in my face. My shorts elastic waistband was really put to the test that day. A trampoline kink. I felt something lovely when listening to some people's voices talking slowly. When I roomed with a 6'4" college hockey player cosplaying as Madoka Kaname for an anime convention and realized he had more fun with that than the sport he'd been playing for years. So, I was with my BF at the time and he asked if I wanted to go to the library at our high school, which was code for let's go mess around. I agreed and went with him. But that day he was in a really shitty mood. So when he started kissing me he wrapped his hand around my neck and started choking me. I actually moaned and he chuckled and started calling me his dirty little SLT while squeezing my tits. Normally he was gentle and it turned me on. But by the time we left that day my knees were weak and I was effing wet as hell. I needed help overcoming minor dyslexia in my early years. In 3rd grade I stayed after school 3 times a week to work with a teacher. I didn't quite piece this all together at the time. But she was young, 20 something, and very attractive. She would always, and I mean always, be wearing boots. Ankle boots. Shin high boots. Knee high boots. Over the knee boots. Leather. Suede. Black. Brown. So my first experience spending regular time with a woman alone, other than my mother, was with an attractive teacher who was in Boots helping me with reading and grammar. My young brain must have fused an association between Boots and time spent with an attractive woman. Boot fetish? Check. Teacher fetish? Check. Reading grammar fetish? Not so much. I slipped and fell into a leather gimp suit. I was browsing Google with a buddy back in like 2002. We didn't get to use the internet much, so we thought Google was the bee's knees, and we decided to search up duct tape. We had rolls and rolls of the stuff to make roses and wallets and whatnot. We were obsessed with duct tape. One image we came across was an erotic image of a woman tied up and gagged with tape. Bondage PRN. He largely ignored it, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. I don't recall exactly how I was able to, but eventually I was able to use a PC alone and unattended. I searched up half a dozen bondage PRN images and printed them off. I fapped to the same printed images an embarrassing amount of times. I'm glad technology has allowed me to follow my fetish easily. I couldn't imagine trying to find fetish PRN pre-internet. When I started taking a high interest in fit, strong, aggressive women in the media I watched read. So much so I started reading fanfiction, including some cringy ones. Grew up very conservative Catholic and knew looking up pornography or girls having sex was wrong. Still wanted to see naked girls. But since they weren't real people, cartoon PRN wasn't a sin, right? And hentai. Watched PRN for the first time. Clicked BDSM fetish. Really roped you in. Hot. Was seeing someone for a while when I told her she deserved a spanking. Took her over my knee. Jeans and panties off. And gave her 20 good smacks on both cheeks. When she got up she was breathing hard and there was a sizable wet spot on my thigh. Light BDSM became part of our lives thereafter. I went to the library to pick a book for a report. Back in grade 7. The one I picked was about a girl who travels back in time. Something about it stood out to me. While reading it, I got to a scene where she is forced to get her hair cut. Reading it made me feel oddly aroused. So I kept reading it over and over. Was hooking up with this guy for the first time and he choked me in bed. Learned real fast how much I enjoyed that. Current BF doesn't like the whole choking thing. Remember that scene in Batman Forever when Poison Ivy hypnotizes the guards into mindlessly adoring her and then killing them with her poison lips? Yeah, that did weird things to my barely pubescent pants. I've recently found out that I'm a bit of a switch. I used to think I was exclusively submissive until I met this guy who really likes being dominated. It's nice, though, because he's a switch too. So we can't usually both dominate in the same session. I called him daddy as a joke once and turned out we both actually liked it. Having sex with my boyfriend and he said if you don't stop, I'm going to come inside you. Somehow I got even wetter than I already was. I'm not on the pill though, so I just asked him to talk about it when we have sex since we can't actually do that. I'm surprised I haven't seen a similar story. When I was young I would watch a lot of hentai. Almost strictly hentai. I noticed a lot of focus was put on the hentai girls' tits. Especially their nipples. It was so arousing and made my own nipples feel good to see. So, I started touching them. And pinching. Squeezing. Stroking. Finding things that can simulate them being sucked on. Invested so much time into my nipples as a preteen. And I still love it to this very day. It almost makes me come. It feels so amazing and different. When I lost my virginity and got my head slammed into the headboard by accident. I loved the pain of it and came so fast. And that's how I got into beating during sex. Mine sort of. Wholesome. I was drunk for the first time at a party with a boy. We had been flirting for months but nothing had really happened yet. I bumped into him in the bathroom and we hooked up on the spot. He said it was the first time he had ever had all 3 holes. Cringe teenage boy talk. Anyway. Now anal is my favorite. His too. We're still together. My boyfriend is B and wanted dick in his ass. Being a fairly soft and flowery person who was usually more submissive, I was a bit squeamish, but I'm a try anything once kinda girl. Figured I'd give pegging a go. Which lead to bondage. Which lead to choking. The more things we tried, the more submissive he became. And the more dominant I became. I thought I wasn't able to orgasm from just PIV sex until I saw him writhing in pain. Turns out, I'm certainly not more submissive lol. And I was hitting all the wrong buttons. When I was 7 or 8 I would make my Barbie kiss Ken. Then I wondered if my Barbie could kiss her friend Teresa. They kissed and then got naked. I was in mass, then the priest tried to guilt us, telling us to imagine we were Jesus's executioners whenever we sin. To paraphrase, imagine you are the one stripping the clothes from his body. Imagine the whip in your hand. Beating our Lord. Damn you Catholics be wildin'. Wife told me a joke regarding a position called bucking bronco where you start doggy style. Start yelling her sister's name. And then try to hang on for dear life. Later, while having sex doggy style, I reference the joke and say her sister's name. Boy dick turns into a diamond cutter. It turns out I have a thing for the dude's role in the Kakuian dynamic wherein I have hot sex with other women in front of my humiliated wife. Shout out the Sears catalogs. Lingerie section. When I was 21 I had a FWB. She was in her 40s. Anne's was a heavy lady who had big boobs that hung down to her belly button. The first time I saw her take her bra off and her boobs dropped and settled, I stopped liking little perky tits. No, I'm crazy for big saggy braless boobs. One night, she asked if I would watch PRN with her. She'd pick a video. Then I would. And back and forth. I'd usually pick big tit or BBW videos at first so she wouldn't compare herself to the thin girls and get depressed. While she'd pick DP gangbang videos. After a few of these, I asked her what she liked about those. And she said she always felt fat and ugly, and the idea that 2-3 guys wanted to be with her so much that they didn't care if other guys were there too was a huge turn on. That night, we explored with toys. And I learned that DPD VPM FM gangbang fisting were a huge turn on for me too. I got turned on by the sound of a girl peeing when I was in 1st grade. Does the sound of frying or grilling chicken on a skillet do anything for you? Actually, I was young and experimental. There was a little silicone rubber type of tube nearby that was able to fit in my pee hole. Guess where I put it? Side note. The burning for a week didn't feel nice. Watching a cam girl. She was doing ice play. I dared her to shove a cube up her butt. In return I had to do it too and send her a video. Endless hours of fun later. Every girl I meet has to try it now. Meeting a non-regular passenger on the train. Hello. Nice to meet you. I was in a TTY marriage and reading and watching lots of Christian YouTube and blogs trying to figure out how to make things work by following all the advice of what a good wife is. One day I stumbled upon the concept of a husband disciplining his wife with spankings. My ex wasn't interested. But my current husband loves it. Turns out I'm not religious, I'm just into BDSM, and submissive Christian wife blogs were the easiest gateway drug to the kinky submission I'm actually interested in. A dress is kinda nice to wear actually. My main fetish is something I've never seen anyone else described, so posting here for science. I guess it's more of a context than an act. I'm turned on by nakedness or any Zul shenanigans in front of roaring fireplaces. Whether it's a SI striptease or just vanilla sex. It's a big deal for me. Never seen anything vaguely familiar described. Told this one before, but I am a little bit pudgy, and one time I was going at it with this absolute twig of a man. I'm talking a man who looked like his back would snap if you made him try on a backpack. That skinny scrawny. So I am on top and something about our position on the bed doesn't sit well with him, so without asking me to remove myself he just straight up lifts us both up. Crab walks across the bed and lays back down. Bim bam boom, Niagara Falls in my pants. And that's how I discovered my strength kink. Well, my ex, before she was my ex, was a heavier girl, and after our first year together I began to realize that I like plus sized women. Yeah, I'm into that super thick sh*t. And I don't have any issues with it. My earliest searches were, naturally, for boobs, which led to searching for big boobs. That path led me to discover breast expansion, a fetish for boobs that become big. It all started on r Ask Reddit when somebody asked about accidentally discovering kinks. Saw a bad dragon thing on Pornhub, then found furry PRN, and now I'm a disappointment. It's okay. I'm sure you were always a disappointment. Was looking through a pro wrestling magazine at a bookstore. At the back of it there were all these ads for videos of buff chicks crushing guys between their legs and physically dominating them. Lost my virginity to a chubby girl, and now I have a sickness for the thickness. So much squish. So meaty. So soft and cuddly. Was at my girlfriend's apartment as she was making dinner. She was chopping up some carrots with a kitchen knife and said she'd need a little bit of my carrot. I said I was a bit exhausted from work. She jokingly brandished the knife and said, "You can either use it or lose it." Full stop. Instantly rock solid. Apparently I have a thing for sexually aggressive women. I read a Hardy Boys book. I'm getting a raging clue right now. Hanging out with a slightly older married couple while in my early 20s. Drinking and having a good time. The wife worked with special needs teens. I can't recall how it happened, but somehow got either dead or lost a game, and the result was I had to wear one of the diapers she had from work. I was pretty skinny back then, still kind of so it fit. It was a point of inner reflection for me. The husband couldn't stop laughing and calling me cute. Yes. I ended up going to bed with both of them. More than a decade later, and now I have a storage tote full of things that would require me to move states away if discovered by anyone I know. I went and got a prostate exam. Okay. So I'm really into girls with short hair. And by saying short, I mean it. I can't take a bullet in my stomach for a pretty woman with a buzzcut. I was new to the English at the time, so I didn't know the word buzzcut. Instead of using buzzcut, I searched PRN by writing shaved head woman. It turned out shaving hair was a thing in BDSM community. It was a wild ride. Cages. Handcuffs. Collars. Chains. My ex wasn't on birth control for the early part of our relationship and had to rely on condoms. Well, one day we were doing the dirty as usual when I thrust deep into her as I was coming and felt a sort of snap. I pulled my cock out of her to find the head sticking out a now ripped condom, which means I had just flooded her unprotected PSSY with my cum. Right then is when I realized I had a thing for impregnating breeding pregnancy risk play. Cat girls are the start of a slippery slope. A furry slope. When I was a kid I knew this girl that was heavily into dance and gymnastics. One day we were playing truth or dare and she had to flash me. She lifted up her shirt and showed me the best six-pack I've ever seen. Instant boner. Ever since then I've been into girls with abs. Sadly. I have a lot of them, but the whole sounding thing came from when, in high school, some classmates were passing around a shock PRN video, wherein there's a pov of a chick is blowing a guy and then all of a sudden just shoves a thin DLDO in the guy's urethra. My friends were all grossed out and tried to get me with it. And I had a different reaction. Actually, that's kind of hot, that's how I got here. In the showers after swim practice, two of the guys were competing who could piss the farthest and I got rock hard. That was that. I have like 97% of the fetishes here TF. Even the one about counting toes to the Barney and Friends toe counting song. A girl sat on my face once when I was a kid. Then she farted. Welp. One of my female friends was hugging me from behind and her lips brushed against my neck. Every muscle in my body tightened. I let out a sigh. Got goosebumps. Then got my girlfriend at the time to kiss my neck, give me hickeys. My GF was giving me a BJ. She went in to finish but I busted a second too soon and ended up spraying all over her face. Science class in high school. They told me that a person's stomach is as big as their fist. And that thought stuck in my young impressionable mind. Imagination ran wild and I started thinking about girls eating other people. And lo and behold. Vor fetish. As life went on, I relied on those fantasies to get me through tough times. Kind of like a safe place amongst all the events in my life. A place to hide. So now, I think of it more as a for fun thing. Started fantasizing about being put in other holes. End of summa. Weird shitty. I mean, in honesty, it's just a weird sidestep from BDSM. It's also the reason that I can't judge people's interests because I got a huge bunch of skeletons.